Hello, my name's Paul Clegg. I'm one of the directors at Coconut, and we're here on the Franchise Marketing Show to talk just a little bit more about Coconut. I'm here with Ian. Hi Ian, how you doing?
Hi Paul, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. And we're just going to spend a little time just talking about things in Easton, if that's okay.
Yes. Well, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's great to have you on our team, and obviously we love having you around with your skills, but also your personality, the guitar man.
Yeah.
So you've got a good journey and backstory, and I just want to go a little bit deeper into something which really impacted your life, if that's okay. And I know it's an emotional thing for you, and we really enjoy supporting you here at Coconut through all the different stages of your life. But this is one that's important to you, so it's important to us as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened?
Essentially, I suppose we're going to start from the beginning, and in 2018, I believe it was now, so wow 6 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
November, I was involved in an explosion at home in my garage, and I was just in there, and it was a faulty radiator that caused the explosion, and I was intubated for I think almost a month. Before that, I was flown to Salisbury Hospital in ICU there. Stayed there for a few weeks, intubated, and then transferred to the burns unit afterwards. So I experienced full thickness burns. So instead of, just for a bit of context, I suppose, instead of the 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, it's now based on, they do it on thickness and percentage coverage.
Right.
So I had full thickness burns to parts of my face and my hands and parts of my body, and then partial thickness burns to the rest. And some quite significant inhalation burns as well, which we weren't quite aware of initially when I was intubated. So the main priority at that time was to save my hands, which got the worst burns at the time, which they did. And if you'd have seen them on the day, I mean, it's a miracle that they're still here and working. And a couple of weeks after waking up, started thinking, I'm struggling to breathe here. And I had such significant burns to the throat that it's damaged the voice box as well. So I've got something called vocal cord paralysis, which kind of means the vocal cords just don't move. Right. So I have a 20% airway. And it was a long recovery after that. And I think I joined Coco, what was it, 2020?
Yeah,
2020, which is over 4 years now. Wow. And I was well into my recovery at that point. And have a lot of thanks to you guys as well for supporting me. And
it impacts you in a lot of different ways as well, and it's just not just the physical ways as well. It affects your thought processes, and
it can do. Yeah. It can do. And there was a lot of psychological trauma there. So I had some what we would call clinical psychology for 3 years after the burns. Yeah. And a lady called Jane at Salisbury Hospital. Shout out to Jane if she's watching. Became great friends and really helped me through processing that. And I think I've done really well because I don't necessarily have flashbacks anymore, or the triggers don't do what they used to.
Good.
I think what it does do is socially, I think you have certain things that need to be taken into consideration and things that you're worried about. Yeah. Scarring, how you look, how you sound. And that's part of the course across all the burns community. Yeah,
I guess it is. And there's been other people that have stepped into your life to help as well, haven't they, in terms of giving you that additional support?
So with burns, because they're so rare within the general population, when you're sort of released back into the wild, you're kind of left by the healthcare services, just because we know how overrun they are, and you're kind of left to fend for yourself. And burns are so rare within the general population that you don't really know any other burn survivors. And everybody who's been burnt is generally burnt for the first time. Yeah. It's generally the first time. You don't really see people getting serious burns twice, really. So it's a very new process, and you're kind of thrown into it. And you're left thinking, okay, what do I do? It's traumatizing. scary, frightening, everything you can imagine. So I started reaching out to the Burns community, shall we say, and found the Katie Piper Foundation, Dan's Fund for Burns, and various other Burns organisations, the Phoenix Society in the United States.
Yeah.
And you start realising there's a whole community there of people who are in the same position. Now, what didn't happen for me, or wasn't available at the time, was something called peer support.
Okay.
Which is where you meet with someone or chat with someone who's had lived experience with burns. And I was crying out for that when I was, discharged from hospital. But it's since come that Dan's Fund for Burns and the Katie Piper Foundation are offering this
amazing
solution or service, if you want to call it that, for new survivors. And I also got involved in some other things. I was helping with burn survivors with the NHS, and on the board for the Southwest Burns Care. And I think the main thing for me was, with burns, you lose a lot of control, you lose a lot of meaning in your life. I think it's, for me, very important to get that meaning back. And the only way I could see that was by trying to get involved in the community and helping others. Yeah. So getting to know Polly at Dan's Fund, and they asked me very kindly if I would like to be a peer supporter for new survivors, which I've been doing. And
that's good for you as well.
It's
as
incredibly rewarding.
For those that you're talking to as well, isn't it?
Yes,
so,
incredibly rewarding.
And just tell us a little more about what the background to, obviously, Dan's Fund for Burns, because we've spoken about them quite a bit.
Yeah.
It'd be great to learn a little bit of backstory and then what we're going to do.
This is the thing with burns, isn't it? Unless I think you're in the community or you have burns or you don't really know much about burns. I'm sure there are people out there who do, but generally, it's kind of well, people just don't know too much about burns experiences, burn trauma, burn survival. So Dan's Fund for Burns was started by Polly Miller, and she was in the Bali bombing in 2002. I think she was either on holiday or maybe a belated honeymoon. I'll have to check that, but she was definitely on holiday, and sadly she lost her new husband, Dan, in the bombing. And Polly survived and decided to start a Burns Foundation called Dan's Fund for Burns in honour of her belated husband, Dan. And that's been going since around 2000 and, I think, mid-noughties.
Okay, and what kind of work do they do to support people?
So they a vast range. So they provide equipment for medical professionals and the NHS. They provide psychological support for burn survivors. They signpost as well. They also do something that's really great, which is a weekly online chat, which was my first foray into burns, where anyone who wants to can log on to the website and you get to chat in an open forum about your experiences, your fears, and it's incredibly open, understanding, and a safe space.
Amazing. Yeah, sounds just what's needed at that time.
Yeah, and that was my first venture. I thought, I'll try this and see what it's like actually talking to someone else who's had this. They're an incredible foundation, and thankfully I'm very lucky to have become great friends with Polly and Jennifer, who work there, and we've been at events together now, and it's been quite a journey to this point.
Yeah, and I was privileged to speak to them as well quite recently, so that was great for that, and thank you for that introduction. We'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But just tell us about your dream.
So when was it, Paul? Probably last year sometime.
It was.
And I had a dream that I climbed Mount Snowdon and sung Tears for Fears, Everybody Rules the World. Everybody wants to rule the world at the top. And I came back into work and I said to you guys, and everybody kind of went, we should do that. We should actually climb Snowdon and sing that.
We're with you,
at the top. And that was spawned the idea of the birth of the idea of what we're going to do. Yes.
Yeah. So we obviously Coconut. We're behind you. We want to support things you do. It's very important to you.
Yeah.
So we want to support Dance Fund for Burns. So
Yes.
what are we going to do, Ian?
We are going to climb Mount Snowdon
Slowly.
by hook or by crook.
Yeah.
And sing "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" at the top.
Okay. And the team obviously joining with us as well from that
Yes.
side. So
Yeah.
hopefully we're going to have all the Coconut people up
Yeah.
there, and anybody else from Dance Fund for
So
Burns who wants to join us.
I believe Polly and Jennifer are going to do it,
Which would be amazing.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
And they're so invested and really chuffed we're doing this. And I believe you've done it before.
I've done it a few times before.
I've done it once.
Yeah.
So I done it when I was 17 and fit and healthy, and I flew up there.
This means a whole lot more and
Yes.
different
Yes.
in terms of we're doing for. Obviously, we're going to raise some funds as well.
Yes.
But not just about the money; it's about the awareness. We
It
want
is
to
about
work
the
with
awareness.
those guys to,
Yeah.
to get the message out a little bit more.
There are survivors out there who don't know they exist still, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe just need a little bit of exposure, or and I'm just happy to do anything to help, basically, because they've done so much for me.
Yeah. So over looking forward, working towards 20th of June, dates in the
Yes.
diary, which is the first thing to make this
Yes.
happen.
I know.
So we can all start getting into training and see how we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Which is going to be brilliant. But
Yeah.
before then, we're going to be telling a story. We're going to get some
Yes.
information out there, and we really want to have an impact and raise some funds for these guys. So
Yeah,
looking forward to do that.
Me too, and
as well,
I
Ian,
believe
so-
we're going to be chatting to Polly as well,
Yes.
and we better get training.
We better get training. So really looking forward to it, Ian. Thank
too.
you for sharing your story.
You're most welcome.
I know it's an emotional journey, and
I think it actually I think it could go two ways. For me, it actually helps talking about it.
okay,
I want to raise awareness of burns and burns trauma, burns recovery,
yeah,
and burns safety as well. You know, this was caused by a faulty radiator for me, but burns things can change in an instant.
yeah,
You know, and everything changes once burns happen. So I'm just more than happy to be that person who talks about it openly and puts myself out there.
Well, thank you for allowing Coconut to support you
Yeah,
as
and
well.
thank you
Ian.
for all
really,
your
really
support. It's
appreciate
been
what you're doing.
great.
So thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.